And good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to Pure Adrenaline Fantasy Sports. Once again, I'm John. Once again, here with Sean. Sean, good morning. How are you?
Pretty good, John. How are you?
Good. Let's look at today's game. We have the Jets and Falcons going on right now. That's a 2010 ball game. But here's the Sunday's lineup and Monday night. What other games are you looking forward to?
I'm interested to see how the Browns-Chargers game goes today. Just think you got two good offenses playing against each other with two really good defenses, and actually interested in the Titans and the Jaguars. Titans rebound from last week, maybe with the Jets loss. I mean, they're still without Julio Jones. They should have known when they traded for him. Julio Jones is injury prone, and 5 weeks into the year, and he's already. This is his second full game, and he already missed half of another. And A.J. Brown's back today, but against the Jaguars defense that kept Jamar Chase in line last week, is he going to have a big game? Is he not? Sort of thing. He should, because of being the number one wide receiver again. No one else there really that's going to get the ball. So it'd be interesting to see on how that game turns out. And then, of course, you got to talk about the Sunday Night Football AFC Championship rematch. The Bills want to get redemption, so I think you might actually see a high-scoring affair tonight. But I think it's only going to be by the Bills. I don't know if the Chiefs will keep up with them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that so far this season the Bills are really good defensively, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. I'm also interested in the Philadelphia-Carolina game. See how Carolina can match up against Philly, and likewise Philly going up against Carolina's defense. Carolina's got a really good defense, so we'll see how Hurts does down there.
Yeah, the NFC East this week, it could be almost division-ending games for three of the teams. Cowboys beat the Giants, and the Eagles lose, and Washington loses. They're all 3 games out.
From the Cowboys, go ahead.
And for the Cowboys to have a 3-game lead in Week 5, that's big already, because that means they already beat their division teams, and they already have a 3-game lead, so they already own tiebreakers and all that. So to have a lead that big, the Cowboys could start just going on cruise mode and rolling into the playoffs and see how they do there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at some of the matchups this week. Fantasy-wise, quarterbacks besides the Sunday night game, because we'll take a look into that a little deeper. But besides Allen and Mahomes, any quarterbacks you're really high on this week?
Sam Darnold. I debated on picking him up in my one league, and I kept saying I'll pick him up Tuesday, and then I just lost Russell Wilson Thursday night. And as soon as I went to go pick him up, someone said I already grabbed him, and I said, well, now I only have Jalen Hurts in that league. So I'm interested about Sam Darnold. I think he's leading the league in rushing touchdowns for a quarterback, and we haven't seen that since I think Week 4. I think the last time I saw a stat, I think it was Mike Vick in his early years when he was in Atlanta. I think he was the last person to be leading the league after 4 weeks as a quarterback. I don't think Lamar yet has. I think he was after like 2 weeks, but have 5 rushing touchdowns in 4 weeks. He's averaging 1.25 a game.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can't go wrong with that. I mean, without CMC, I expected him not to be as great, and I think Sam Darnold is having top 10 year, which is shocking. I think after he left New York, Carolina let him go to like Cam Newton, run when you can, throw when you have to, and he's proven that he doesn't have to throw the ball a lot to get what he needs. I mean, he's still putting up 20-plus points every game, even though last week the defense hurt him. He still put up a great statistical game.
Yeah, looking at Sam Darnold on the season, he is actually the 5th-ranked quarterback on the year, averaging 24.5 points a game. And he's only owned in a little over 51% of fantasy leagues. So he probably is available. And with bye week starting next week, some of you guys might need a quarterback. like you said, Sam Darnold does have 5 passing touchdowns on the year, but he also has 5, like you said, Sean, 5 rushing touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
He's 5th on the season. I do have him ranked 13th this week, so a little lower than his season average, but he will be able to put up points today against Carolina, I think.
Yeah, and I mean,
Or for Carolina.
And plus people having Russell Wilson, I mean, he's owned in a lot of leagues. Russell Wilson going down injured, people are going to need a quarterback, and you don't really have quarterbacks in like people that are like Houston. People aren't going to have Trevor Lawrence or like Mac Jones. Not many people are going to probably be starting Trey Lance. So the 2 people I would want to pick up right now in leagues, if you can, are Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. Those two they're great passing, great rushing. The only other problem they've always had so far in both early careers is turnover ratio. And this year they're both, up until last week, Daniel Jones actually didn't have an interception. He only had them last week because of Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jones was the next guy I was going to talk about because he is 6th so far on the Young Fantasy season, averaging almost 24 points a game. He's only owned in 41.8% of leagues. He's got 4 touchdowns and 1 interception, but the 2 rushing touchdowns. He's actually got 188 rushing yards as well. I have him as a 17th ranked quarterback this week, so a little drop off from where he actually is on the season. But that Dallas Giants game has the potential to be a high scoring affair.
Yeah, I think that'll be a high scoring game. I don't see why it wouldn't. I just think that you're going to have 2 offenses going at it. I mean, Dallas against even Jalen Hurts gave up a lot of points, even though they won that game big. You can put up a lot of points on offense, but if your defense can't help you, then that's not going to help you statistically.
Yeah. Any other besides those 2? Any other quarterbacks before we take a look at running backs?
I truly, another person that I would go if you can pick up, and I'm sure he's available in a lot of leagues, is Taylor Heineke. Also in Washington, him and Terry McLaurin. They call it the TNT combo. They're both, if you can pick him up, he's going to put up numbers. He really likes Terry McLaurin. I know they just lost Logan Thomas for 3 weeks at least on IR, probably a little bit longer, but he's great statistically, and he can run the ball like most quarterbacks can nowadays. He's not going to go breaking, 50-yard runs, but he's going to get you your numbers passing. And yeah, he might have a few turnovers, but looking at your numbers, he's 15th ranked on the year in quarterbacks, and he didn't start week 1.
Right. Yeah. What do you think of the matchup against New Orleans? New Orleans is currently number 9 against fantasy quarterbacks, so a little bit tougher matchup this week.
I'm not too worried about that. I think that it's hard to rate the Saints defense. They gave up a lot to Daniel Jones last week late in the 4th quarter. They were up 10 and gave up a lot of points. Week 1, obviously they had a great week against Green Bay, but I think Aaron Rodgers just wasn't focused 100% going into that game. And since then, he's won every game with double-digit wins. So I just look at it as Taylor Heineke hasn't played, or not Taylor Heineke, the Saints defense hasn't played that top quarterback yet early this year. So I think if they play, I'm not saying Taylor Heineke is going to put up, MVP numbers today, but once they start playing their quarterbacks, like when they play Tom Brady, Sam Darnold, Matt Ryan, I think the Saints defense you'll start seeing when they play their division teams open up and see how their numbers really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump over to running backs here. I actually in the night games this week, I don't have anybody in the top 10. So most of our top tiered running backs this week are in the either 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock games. Anybody you're looking forward to seeing before I give my take?
I would just keep an eye on Dalvin Cook. He's still questionable going into the game. I know Joe Mixon. A lot of people are probably picking up Perrine, the running back, the Mixon. I know Mixon, they said he's probably going to play today, but they said they're only going to use him in certain cases, scenarios. So I'm thinking 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s. He's got an ankle injury. You're not going to go out and risk your star running back on week 5 to playing against a Green Bay team where the game isn't, I wouldn't say meaningless, but a game that you can't go out and risk injury this early and expect him to be out for like a lot of points of the year where you need him in bigger games.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Eckler does for the Chargers today, going up against the Browns. Have the number 2 ranked fantasy defense against running backs. So I'm interested to see that matchup. Najee Harris going up against the number 1. I know Denver's number 1, but their opponents haven't been that great this year. So what do you think of Damian Williams in Chicago filling in?
I like it. I actually picked him up on one of my teams, put him in a flex spot this week already. I like that. I just think that he's perfect for that scenario. He did it in Kansas City, and he went there because he figured he wanted a starting role possibly. And, I mean, you're not going to get it with David Montgomery there, but he can prove himself to other teams that he is worthy. Another player that I would keep an eye on is Chubba Hubbard. I think he's destined to have a good game today against Philly. He's going to get majority of the rushing yards, but I asked you a question earlier. Their backup, Rodney Smith, he had 0 rushing yards last week, but he actually put up 8 of 12 catches, or I think it was like 8 of 11. He had like 80 or 90 yards catching last week and 0 yards, and he still put up great numbers in a PPR league for a guy that had 0 rushing yards as a running back. Another one is that I've actually picked up and put him on my bench is Derrick Henry's backup. With all the injuries in Tennessee, they actually used him as a wide receiver last week, and he had like 10 yards rushing. They use him as a change of pace, but he caught 9 of 12 catches for 90 yards as a receiving back last week. So I would keep an eye on him just in case if you ever see Derrick Henry have any injury, which, I mean, he's a freak of nature. The guy is bigger than most people. And to see him ever get injured, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but I don't see it happening anytime soon in his career.
Yeah, the running back I was high on this week was going to be Damien Harris from New England. But I believe 4 of the Patriots starting offensive linemen are out this week. Now, I think the Patriots will still win, but I'm not sure how run blocking will be.
Yeah, I think you'll see what they did last week. They just bailed on the run and go for the pass. Just stick with passing and bail on the run again. And you'll see Damien Harris get a lot of the passing attempts, I think, overall compared to the rushing attempts.
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping into wide receivers, some of the top guys, Hill, Diggs, are in tonight's game. The receiver I'm actually looking forward to today is Justin Jefferson going up against Detroit. Detroit's ranked 12th, but I do have Jefferson getting 6 catches, 97 yards, and a 70% chance at a touchdown. As a Vikings fan, what's your honest take of Justin Jefferson this week?
I don't see him getting a touchdown this week. I see him having a big yardage game. I mean, he's destined to have big yardage games every week because of his speed and ability to catch the ball. But I would say you have a better chance of Adam Thielen getting a touchdown in Minnesota just because he's their red zone threat. I mean, he has, I think, 4 touchdowns on a year already, 2 coming in week 1 now. So I would see him having a bigger game with a possibility of more yardage. A player on your list that I'm not too big on him having a big game today is Amari Cooper. rib injury and a hamstring injury. He's questionable to play. He's probably going to suit up, but how much are they going to use him? I think only 45% of the snaps last week he played. If you have CeeDee Lamb, you got to put him in your starting lineup over Amari Cooper right now. If you have Amari Cooper, kind of work your way to the bench with him if you can, unless you need to, or have him on standby just in case he is inactive late. You can swap someone else in.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Another person that I think is destined to have a really big game is Debo Samuel. I mean, he's putting up numbers this year. I mean, as of last week, he's on pace to break the record for Calvin Johnson's receiving record already, and so I mean, nothing, you can't go against him. I mean, his speed. The guy's been injury prone the first 2 years of his career, and now he's out proving himself, and he's their number one. And Trey Lance doesn't really have a favorite yet, but I'm sure if he has a favorite, it's going to be Debo. George Kittle's out for 3 weeks at least, so he's not going to be throwing to a tight end that hasn't played in games very much with Kittle playing. So I would say Debo is probably going to be having big games, and Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, some of the guys I was looking that were a little bit that might be a low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3, especially with once again with bye weeks coming up. Hunter Renfro right now for Vegas is the 21st ranked wide receiver on the year, averaging almost 15 points a week. I do have him low this week, but you know, you guys got to start thinking about adding players for depth and bye weeks. And Sean, anybody that might be a low percentage that's really higher in your list?
Another player that I keep an eye on is the duo in Miami, Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle. They're going against the 32nd ranked receiving defense with the Bucks. They're giving up a lot of yards. And Jacoby Brissett, probably last week starting. I heard Tua possibly back next week. So Brissett's got a lot to prove. I mean, he proves that he could be a good, if he can go out today and beat a Tampa Bay Bucks team, he might prove himself possibly being a trade aspect for people like Houston or another team out there that could use a quarterback like as either backup or even possibly a starter. I mean, people are going to start looking at people possibly going to other teams right now. I mean, Pittsburgh, they lose today. Pittsburgh 1-4. How long do they ride Ben Roethlisberger? And hoping that he turns it around. I mean, he said he wanted to play one more year. He probably should have retired after last year with the numbers he's putting up.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
I keep an eye on Waddle and Parker. I wouldn't say they're going to have breakout big games, but they are the only two down there other than Mike Gesicki, a tight end. Another player in that game that I really like is Antonio Brown. I just think the last time he played against them, he played with them as a Patriot. It was last year or 2 years ago, and he had a great game. I think it was a touchdown and like over 100 yards. So he knows that defense, and with Godwin and Evans going to get their top 2 coverage, Antonio Brown without Gronkowski is destined to have a big game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump over to tight ends here. Of course, the big name guys, Kelsey, Waller, Andrews. Pitts is having a big game today. He's got his first career touchdown. You brought up Gesicki. And Dalton Schultz has actually started lighting it up down there in Dallas.
Yeah.
I know you were trying to trade for him.
Yeah, I ended up getting him. I ended up trading away Mike Davis and another, I think it was Robbie Anderson. It was Pittman and Mike Davis I traded for Dalton Schultz. I lost my tight end already for the year, or not the year, but a few weeks, in Logan Thomas. And I had Kyle Pitts on the bench, and I said I wanted more depth, so I went with Dalton Schultz as an option in my fantasy league. A player to keep an eye on. He's great with either quarterback is Noah Fant.
Mhm.
If Drew Lock starts or Teddy Bridgewater starts, whoever starts, they have been going to him. I would stay away from Hunter Henry and Janu Smith in New England. I don't know who's getting the ball there, who might not. So I wouldn't really go with that. A player if I can pick up, and you can pick up in your leagues, is Dawson Knox in Buffalo. Against Kansas City, he's going to put up numbers. Kansas City's defense can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, every week, I think the fewest points they gave up so far this year was last week against the Eagles, and I think that was 24, 28.
Yep.
So if you got Kansas City defense, I'd drop them.
Yeah, they're not putting up many points, if any at all. I'm not sure what happened there. I know they put in the offseason, they put a lot of time and effort into rebuilding that offensive line, but I mean, it's showing this year. You got to be able to stop some people. I mean, if they lose tonight, what's their record? They're 2-3.
They would be 2-3.
Yeah.
Just got the alert. Dalvin Cook is out for the Minnesota.
Dalvin Cook is out. So who's their backup there in Minnesota?
Madison. So if people have Madison and don't have Dalvin Cook, got to get rid of that in your lineups now.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't want to spend too much time on kickers because there's not. Yeah.
Yeah, you're throwing a piece of paper into a windstorm there.
Yeah.
You got to hope and pray you get something. And same with defenses. I mean, you got to start people like New England, going against Houston, Las Vegas against Chicago, Arizona against San Francisco, rookie quarterbacks, the Bucks against Brissett. A team that is questionable that I haven't seen proof out of them yet is the Steelers against Denver. I'm not sure about that. Or Titans against Jacksonville. I thought Titans last week against the Jets would be great, and they looked great for the first two quarters, and in the second half, I don't even figure they just stopped playing. They figured cruise control would work.
Yep. So let's look into tonight's game between Buffalo and Kansas City. Honestly, I don't see Kansas City being able to stop Buffalo. I believe Buffalo is the best team in the AFC.
Yeah.
I think they're not only are they going to want to win tonight, but I mean that's going to go a long way in determining home field advantage because this year only one team gets home field advantage.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like I said, I think you're going to see probably almost 75 points out of this game tonight, if not around that. I would say it's going to be a high-scoring affair. You got the number one and number two quarterbacks going at each other. You got two teams that don't run the ball. You got the Chiefs defense who can't stop a pass, and you got the Buffalo team who can stop passing. So who breaks, who bends, who can stay up long enough, stay far enough up into it to keep the game going. Truthfully, if you got Diggs, you got Hill, you got Hilaire, Allen, Mahomes, Knox, Kelsey, you're starting all of them. Even they're both kickers. They're going to be putting up a lot of possible kicking points. Don't start either defense, so I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, taking a little bit deeper look, looking at Singletary and Moss, the running backs for Buffalo. Are either one of those guys worth a fantasy start?
I wouldn't. I just Moss gets a lot of carries when it's a blowout game. Until it's a blowout, he's not really getting big catches. Singletary is inconsistent. I think only this year he's only put up like an average of like 10 points a game. Fantasy wise, he hasn't really had that big breakout game. I mean, the only week I think he did was week 2 or week 3 at like a 70-yard touchdown run, like second play of the game, and then after that he had like 12 yards. He didn't really go off for a big game, so I wouldn't trust either of them, honestly.
Now, of course, you said Diggs. Diggs is a must start every week. But what about Sanders and Beasley?
Sanders, I would start. Beasley is iffy. If you need a flex, put him in, but I wouldn't start him. Sanders, I think, and Diggs are the two go-tos for Allen. Beasley's more of that check down, no one else open sort of thing for them.
Yeah, and you brought up Dawson Knox. Trying to add him to your fantasy teams if he's available. This week, Kansas City's ranked 28th against tight ends, so definitely a good matchup there. Jumping over to Kansas City, of course, Patrick Mahomes must start every week. But Buffalo is fourth-ranked fantasy defense against running backs. What do you think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week?
How much are the Chiefs going to use them, sort of thing? That's the question that comes down to it. How often, how much is he going to trust them, knowing that he's a fumble Ruski this year and having a lot of Butterfingers on the sideline and popcorn? That's what it comes down to. I just don't trust him enough to want to start him if you don't have to, sort of thing, until he can prove that he can hang on to the ball. If you have him in your team and you have to start him, I would. But if you don't need to start him, I'd probably keep him on your bench or put him at most flex spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Tyreek Hill. But what do you think of Nicole Hardman this week? I have him ranked as the 75th fantasy wide receiver. He's 59th on the season. What do you think? Because I think they might have to be pass the ball a lot tonight to stay in this game.
I don't like Tyreek Hill as much as I like Nicole Hardman. I like Nicole Hardman for the fact that Tyreek's going to get covered by Tre'Davious White all game. Nicole Hardman is going to feed a lot underneath. The same with DeMarcus Robinson. I wouldn't go out starting either of them in your lineups. But if you have the option to pick them up, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Kelsey's a must start. And Butker. I don't. He's my kicker in fantasy, but I don't know. In one way I could see this being a high scoring game, and another way I could see Buffalo completely shutting them down.
Yeah, that's one of those. I see it being a high scoring game. I just don't know who's gonna. I think the Bills win it just for a revenge game, but it's hard being in Kansas City. Travis Kelce, I think, will have a big game. He had a really off week the last 2 weeks, so I think it's destined that he has his breakout game, and Mahomes is going to have no time to throw the ball, so he's just going to be throwing it a lot, quick pressure games.
Anything else on this game before we get into some of our predictions this week?
No. I'm just excited to see division games, and then you got the revenge game and being Kansas City and Buffalo. Interested to see Justin Fields and Trey Lance against two good defenses. Same with Trevor Lawrence against an iffy Titans. Carolina and Eagles both got to have a bounce back week. Lost last week, so they need to have a bounce back week. So I'd be interested to see that. Other than that, I just think that the 1 o'clock games, you're probably not going to see any high scoring games. I don't think you'll see a high scoring game until you almost the 4 o'clock games, and I think that's when you'll see some points being put on the board today.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, what are your some either player predictions or game predictions for the week?
I think you're gonna see. Like I said, I think the Bills and the Chiefs game. I think you're gonna see around 75 points tonight. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. My upset of the week, I'm actually going to stick with the same team as I did last week. Giants upset the Cowboys, I think,
Wow.
in Dallas.
Wow.
I think that's destined to happen.
And honestly, why I actually like Dallas this week. Not as a best bet, but why do you think the Giants will beat Dallas?
They went into New Orleans last week upset New Orleans in overtime, came back from 10 down late in the fourth. So I think that Dallas is going to sleep on them. I know the Giants have a couple of defensive players injured, but I still think that the end result, Dallas will overthink the Giants, and I think that Barkley is destined to have another breakout week.
Yep. And, any other games you like?
I think in the Jones versus Mills game with Patriots and Houston, I think that game there you're going to see around 5 turnovers total. I think you'll see a bunch of turnovers in that game. And my lock of the week. I think that you're going to see Carolina beat the Eagles.
Lock of the week, Carolina over Philly. Yeah, I don't have any locks. I do have some best bets. I actually I won't count the early game. I did like Atlanta over the Jets, actually, but I like Tampa Bay to win, New England to win, and Vegas to win.
Yeah, those are all good ones.
And guys, if you look at that, my best bets, I'm actually 16-3 on the year. Let's go, Sean. How are you doing in your picks?
Yeah, I'm not doing too well, but I picked some no-brainer, questionable ones for sure.
Before we go, what's the Thursday night game? Week 6. I know we looked it up. I think it's Philly and somebody, right?
Philly and Tampa Bay next week.
Ooh, Philly and Tampa Bay. Any early thoughts on that game?
Tampa Bay rules. It's in Tampa. You're not going to see Tom Brady lose at home on a primetime game to a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, guys, make sure you keep checking injury updates on Twitter or Facebook. Now, Sean, I know you're on Instagram. Do they put that kind of stuff on Instagram?
If you check, I think it's called Fantasy Sports. I follow them. They usually put stuff in like that. And DraftKings does some stuff like that, and FanDuel as well for fantasy related, like injury updates and all that. They usually try to do like that. And then there's like a couple of different pages that you can follow, and they do like inactives and actives.
Gotcha. So, guys, once again, thanks for watching. We're live Thursday nights at 7 Eastern, Sundays at 11:30. You can follow us on Twitter. Ask questions either in the comments below or on Twitter or Facebook, and we'll answer those. Sean, any parting words before we go?
No, just put people in your fantasy lineups that are the high scoring games. Cleveland, LA, Buffalo, KC, Dallas, New York, Tampa, and Miami. Those kind of games. And low scoring games like New England, Houston, Philly, Carolina, probably Titans and Jacksonville. I wouldn't put as many people in those lineups just because you're not going to see many possible points put in those games, as many as you will in the other games that are division or high scoring offenses.
Just so you know, Michael Carter just scored for the Jets to make it they're going for 2. It's now 20-17.
1 score game.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, so guys, once again, thanks for watching, and we will see you Thursday night. Sean,
all right.
I'll text you after.
See you later, guys. See you Thursday.